This is today's business leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
So on today's show, I have Tim Petrey with HD Davis and White Glove Payroll and some other companies that we'll probably talk about as well. Tim and I get along great because he is another serial entrepreneur just like me. So we're always talking business and hanging out and theorizing about that stuff. And also, I met Tim like about 8 years ago, and he got me out of a giant, disastrous mess that I had created for myself from a tax and financial standpoint. And he's somebody that I rely on for all my tax needs, and has actually helped me learn to somewhat like the IRS. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks. Like the IRS. Wow. How about that? Yeah. You've learned to embrace the idea, right? I mean, you've learned to embrace the idea that having, owing money to the IRS isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, maybe that's a more accurate description. And like periodically, well, early on when we got together, I'll share my story. Tim obviously would never talk about clients, but I can tell you guys what happened. I had massive problems from when I lost my first business and trying to do my own taxes, which is a horrible, horrible idea, in case anybody doesn't know. So I had giant messes, and I think like I've kept like a running total. I think Tim has saved me like $20,000 or $30,000 in taxes, something like that, and even gone back and negotiated and fixed stupid things I screwed up long before he was involved. So I like getting email from Tim because it's usually good. It's usually good news. So, but yeah, it's for me starting out. I didn't do well with taxes and finances and all that stuff, which we'll probably get to a little bit later. But as we always do when we start the show here, tell me when you first realized that you were an entrepreneur, Tim.
When I first realized I was an entrepreneur, was probably one of those nights that I was here at the office at 10 o'clock at night, and looking around and nobody else is here, and for some reason I liked it. My favorite quote about being an entrepreneur is, we're the people that work 80-hour weeks so we don't have to work 40-hour weeks, or something like that. So I really enjoy, the freedom that comes with it. And that's when I realized it was then when I realized that I could work as hard as I want when I need to, as long as I can enjoy the time that we're not crazy.
Yeah. And we caught you at a good time because you're getting into crazy season.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting down with you like maybe 1st of June one year, and you're like, one more week and I'm going to go take a walk in the woods and pretend that I don't ever have to touch this stuff again. And you get to take a month off, or I think you remember that conversation.
The week after tax season ends, it's April 15th, April 17th, whatever, that week after, I just disappear.
Yeah.
Turn the phone off. Either before my son was born, it was go hang out in the woods, go fishing, go do whatever just to get away for a little bit. Now it's spend time with the family, go somewhere, hang out, even if you just sit at home and watch Netflix for a week and not look at numbers and just reset. It's important. It's a big deal in the entrepreneurial world, is just learning how to manage that and learn how to not push yourself over the edge. And it's not easy.
Yeah. No, you definitely you have to figure out your tolerance for when to push hard, and then like you said, when to take a step back and take time off or take a season off and do that. And because you can't go 80 hours a week all year long and survive, I don't think.
It truly is a law of diminishing returns. After you get to a certain point, your product just gets worse, and whether that product is making widgets or making tax returns or giving advice, after so much time you just only have so much. So.
Yeah, definitely. You have a really interesting story that we've talked about off and on, but I really like what you shared when you sent over some of the notes for the show about how you got started and how you got to where you are. Because when I first met you, I assumed you were like 4 or 5 years older than me, which you're not. But you're clearly somebody with a lot of wisdom and a really good strategy. And I know that you've been mentored by Harold, along the way. Can you walk us through kind of where you first got to become a CPA and why you got in business and how you, how you came to be, the owner at HD Davis, or, your company now?
It was, I can attribute a lot of me being open to the idea of being an entrepreneur because of Harold. Harold gave me a lot of opportunities at an early age that I would not have gotten otherwise. And spending time with him, one of the things that he really imparted in me was showing me how to not just work hard, but also have a good time and have a good balance of the two. When he and I started working together, I was pretty much fresh out of college, and he had just left his original firm that he was with, and he was kind of treading down this new career path. And we met at the most opportune time. He had recently just acquired a business that was a little bit more work than he thought it would be, and I was just getting out of school, and I was ready to work. Neither of us knew what was our expectations were going into this. At the time, the idea was maybe it was just going to be a temporary thing. I'd help him out. I'd get him through until the more experienced person came up. And I started here fresh out of college answering phones. I was sitting at the front desk making $8-9 an hour answering phones. Now at the time, I'm a degreed accountant. I just got out of school. I've got all this college debt. I've got all this stuff going on that was really intimidating. And once we worked together for the first couple of months, we both knew that we had something going. So slowly, as he kind of trained me through, his variety of spiels and imparted the wisdom that he had gained onto me, I started to take over more and more. We started to get more momentum. We started to get aggressive about acquiring talent to surround me. And once we got to that kind of point of critical mass where we had that team of really talented individuals at our office, then there was just no stopping us. The momentum was insane, and it hasn't stopped. We've been in business here at the CPA firm for about 10 years, and we have not had a year of growth under 10% yet. We came in at like 28% this year after all was said and done over last year, and last year was 20% over the year prior to that. So what we're doing is not about just that, though. What we're doing is trying to create an environment that people want to work at. People want to work here. They love their job. And when you interact with everybody on my team, you don't get a grumpy person. You don't get somebody that hates showing up to work every day. You get somebody that likes being here, and that shows, and that makes a difference. And that's why we've been able to grow and we've been successful, is because people like what they're doing, and the people that like what they're doing do a better job at it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You and your team there, and your leadership is a great example of that. And it's I remember you said something that was really funny. Or I don't know, I'm going to butcher the exact conversation, but it was quite a few years back early on. And you're like, either I said it or Rachel said it or you said, we were having a conversation, and you're like, well, I'm a bean counter, but I'm not a douchebag. And it really stuck with me, because you're not the typical CPA in any stretch of the imagination. Because I'll just be honest, I hate most CPAs, not as people, but like when you have to deal with them in a business sense, it's just like, it's horrible. They just don't get it from an entrepreneurial stance. They don't understand customer service. They don't have like the core value that I know you shared with me about how, you guys really believe like just, treat others like you want to be treated, and across the board. And that's really, really apparent with your team. I love working with Aaron. I like, when I call in and speak with anybody, they're friendly and happy and nice. And like you said, they don't hate their life. And whatever culture you've created there is just phenomenal. And the results show. It's like, you guys work hard to deliver results. And, I always tell people working with you never costs me a dime. It makes me so much money. And I think that really spawns from the attitude and the culture, not just your strategy. I mean, you're good at your strategy, but I think it wouldn't be there without the culture, right?
Strategy is not drastically different. There's plenty of talented CPAs. There's a ton of really good accountants and people that are fantastic at all of that stuff. But that to me is not the hard part. That to me is relatively simple math. Is doing your research, doing your homework, making sure you understand your clients, and being able to execute a plan. The tough part is just being able to communicate with people and understanding empathy and understanding how valuable it is to treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, and that same principle, in my opinion, can be applied to any business. And the reason we've been able to successfully take that business model and apply it into different areas, not just a CPA firm, but the payroll business and the promotional products and the apparel business is all the same thing. It's just is being able to provide that level of service is important. And it's amazing to me how many businesses have just given up on it. They give up on the old school, true, valuable customer service. It's shocking to me.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And the other reason why you are literally the only CPA I will ever recommend to people is because early on, like you took a bet on, like you took a big gamble on me. Like I came to you in a giant mess, and I'm sure you spent more time than you billed me for. And you went from, I went from like everything being screwed up because I had done it myself, and numbers on that end of the numbers thing is not my thing. I can sell all day long. I just really didn't have any financial intelligence or even financial models, 8 years ago. From day one, I had another CPA drop me out of the blue right in the middle of tax season. And I came to you, and like, I immediately knew that, you were going to take care of me. And I just have the utmost trust in you. And like, it's that level of taking care of people. And it's your like long-term thinking about the relationship and the business and what's really good for everybody that has just been incredibly impressive and meaningful to me.
I appreciate the feedback, man. I mean, that's good to hear that what we want to get out there is getting out there. I mean, that really has been our mentality, is that, we're in a numbers game that I feel that we have the advantage on. We're generally younger than all of the competition. So our goal is to make the investment in our clients now. Get them moving in the right direction, get them understanding what's going on, get them to the point like you where you understand and you're not intimidated by some of these conversations. And then, if I can unleash that on you, and I can take those handcuffs off of you so you can go do what you do best, then, I'm going to have the greatest salesperson ever, for the next, however many years that you're in business, and that's our goal, is to not just do enough to make people, just happy enough. Our goal is for every single one of our clients to have that same response. And sometimes that can be a lot of pressure for every people, for all of our people to work under, but at the same time, they get it. They understand that that's the expectation. And we treat our people right so that they can make sure that they are communicating that same result. Because in my opinion, if you're just doing enough to get by, it's not going to last. That's just a temporary thing. Our goal is to do more than enough, to do enough that, exactly like you're saying, when you're out and it even barely comes up in a conversation about taxes, you want to tell people because you want to look good. You want to be the guy that referred them to the place that makes them not lose sleep at night and put more money in their pocket and so on and so forth. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, no, that's you guys, you teach it, preach it, and live it. And it's very apparent. And every time I have a conversation with you, unfortunately, we don't get together as much as I'd like, but we get together a few times over the year, and it's like every time I get together with you, you say something that will stick with me for a long time. And you said something really impactful in one of them, they all blend together for me, where you said, my job is to maximize the talent and potential of every person on my team. And like, it really stuck with me. And it's like, it made me come at how I manage my team in a very different way, because then I realized, oh, like, and you just described it, like, if they're happy with, with their job, if they love what they do, then it's a lot easier to create an amazing customer experience. And that's super, super helpful. You talked about something earlier about how you've been able to attract really good talent, and that's been a huge driver for you. Sometimes I think in my past, not so much anymore, but definitely in the past, and when I talk to people, they have a fear. They're like, well, I want somebody really good, but I can't compensate them for that. Or they just come into like it with that attitude. How do you coach people through that? Because I mean, honestly, a lot of what you do is you're a business coach as much as or more than a CPA.
Yeah, I think that my favorite thing to explain to people is the greatest investment that you can make is in people. Whether it's the people that work for you or the relationships that you have to spend the money to do it correctly. Now, there's a super fine line, there's a super fine balance about managing that, though. One of the lines that we seem to use over and over again is, you got to be slow to hire and quick to fire. So you have to make sure that if you've got somebody that's bad, you get rid of them. You got to make sure that you take the time to vet people, get them in here, understand what they can do, bring them in. The interview, more often than not, the interview does nothing. You just got to hire people and see what they're made of. And then, you have to not be afraid of that awkward conversation of, hey, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, they know it. Yeah. It's not like that you're surprising them. They get the fact that, this for whatever reason, this isn't working. So that's the biggest thing that, we focus on with people is, trying to help them get through some of those conversations that require a lot of energy. Firing people is not fun in any business. I don't care what you're doing. There's a small amount of people that like it. There's a small amount of people that get some weird, sick joy out of that kind of thing, but it's not me. Like, I have a family, I have bills just like everybody else. So like, I totally understand that, but at the same time, more often than not, we've seen, hey, once I fire this person, they go and they find something that is a better fit for them anyways. Yeah. So, that's the thing that I try and impart on a lot of my clients is, you're doing, not only are you doing yourself a disservice by not letting go of that person quick enough, but you're doing them a disservice. You're gonna harm their career, you're gonna harm their family, you're gonna harm their bank account in the long run, because we all know this isn't gonna work. So, the issue in every realm, in every industry that we touch, because we see them all, is just not having a good, solid foundation and relationship with your employees. But you said something very important, though. You hear people talking about being afraid to spend the money to get good employees. Good employees are never a bad investment. You cannot lose money on someone that's good at their job, because if that's the case, you're doing something wrong. So you got to spend the money, you got to get the right people, you got to surround yourself with the right team. My goal is to be the dumbest guy in this building every day. I want to be the worst guy at my job in this building every day. So we're trying real hard every day to make sure that everybody is better and smarter than Tim Petrey. Yeah. Not hard, by the way.
I don't know about that, but I think that's a good goal. Yeah, no, you're right. And when you think it through, we talk about pricing a ton in this group. We talk about being profitable. I mean, a lot of stuff that you've taught me over the years and we've worked through, it's like, end of the day, if you hire the wrong person, they're just going to cost you way too much money, way too much time, way too much emotional energy, which on paper and on the productivity front will cost you a ton. So you're right. It's better to get the qualified people in and and make sure your business model works and your pricing works for that, then try to do it on the cheap and not get the results like you should.
No doubt.
So I'm not a tax professional, obviously. That's why you're here, and I tell everybody about you. But one of the things I did want to touch on is there's a lot of people here in the community here in our group that are starting out. We survey everybody that comes in, and I would say 80% or greater are in a very normal stage of entrepreneurship, which I know you and I know a lot about, where they haven't crossed 6 figures in revenue yet. They're scaling up, they're learning their business skills, they're figuring this stuff out. And one thing that I see people do very frequently is they think that they're saving money, doing their own taxes, which I know is ludicrous, because I've tried it and it was extremely expensive. Fortunately, you saved me a ton of that, that learning expense that I had accrued by doing things the wrong way. But what would you speak to as far as for folks at that stage that have something on the side, or they're getting things established now, or they're learning the skills of entrepreneurship, and they need to be aware of different things from a tax and finance standpoint as a small business owner? What are some of the top common things that you solve, or what guidance would you give us?
I think that more often than not, we come across this conversation with people of, I'm trying to save money, I'm going to do this myself, and I'm gonna do the reading, and I'm gonna learn, and so on and so forth. So here's the simple math that goes into it, is that when I do your tax return on a simple individual, we're gonna sit down 9 times out of 10. We're either gonna sit down in person, we're gonna sit down and have a conversation over the phone, and this process lasts, all encompassing, let's call it 2 hours, between the time that it takes you to collect all your information and the time that it takes me to have everything in my system, send you a copy, review it over the phone. 2 hours of your life. And we are getting the absolute maximum efficiency out of that 2 hours, right? So I'm telling you what you need to know that specifically applies to you. You're able to ask me questions directly about the things that apply to you. You don't have to go digging and Googling things that may or may not apply to you, and reading things in different articles, again, that may or may not apply to you, because the Internal Revenue Code is extremely detailed and specific about certain areas. If an individual is trying to do this on their own, they're spending hours upon hours, if not days, getting this process done. And in those days that you are spending on something that is of no value to you, you could have been reinvesting into yourself. You could have been getting a customer. You could have been going out and learning a new skill that you can go and make money on. I've gotten to the point now, and this is one of the other gems that I've pulled from Harold over the years, is learning to embrace what you know how to do and learning to embrace what others know how to do. I don't try and fix my own car. I don't change my own oil in my car. Because at the end of the day, if I try and change my oil in my car, or the tires on my car, or whatever, and I do that wrong, the consequences are bad. Either something bad happens to the car, which costs me more money,
right,
or I lose hours of my time, then it costs me more money. It's easy for me in my business to look at things and say, my time is worth X. My hourly rate is X. So I truly know the value of my time. That's the part that a lot of, the business owners or the folks with the side hustle or this, that, or the other thing don't truly understand, is what's my hourly rate? So I'll tell you the simple math here. Okay.
Perfect.
You've got a job making $60,000 a year. Okay. And so somebody's paying you $60,000 a year, and you've got your side hustle doing whatever, making stuff for Etsy, or, selling stuff at craft shows, or whatever it might be. At a minimum, you make 60 grand a year, your cost is $30 an hour. So if something that you do it costs for you to pay someone else to do it less than $30 an hour, there's no reason that you shouldn't be paying them to do it. Whatever it is, cutting the grass, plowing the driveway, your laundry, cleaning your house, the things that you don't enjoy doing, you got to break down to that real simple math and say, all right, well, I know that if I had this time back, if I had those 2 hours that I wasted cutting my grass, that I could now go bill $100, $200 an hour for some value added service that I'm providing to someone. It'd be silly for me to cut my own grass.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not, I use cutting grass as an example, but it's anything. And that certainly applies to trying to prepare your own taxes. In the other sense, when it comes time to me trying to fix my own car, the danger of me doing that incorrectly is far more than financial. The danger is that I'm driving down the road and the wheel falls off and I end up in a ditch and can't pay the bills for my family. Yeah. With the IRS, the danger is you make one dumb mistake on something, you have no idea what the consequence of that mistake is until you make it. And the interesting part about the IRS is that they're not exactly the most efficient organization. So they're probably not going to catch that mistake until 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And good luck unraveling it. I mean, I know that I'm a pretty busy guy, and as entrepreneurs and as anybody with a side hustle, that's trying to get going is busy. So, you have a hard enough time remembering what you ate for breakfast, let alone the check that you wrote for $2,000 back in 2015.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have your stuff together, they're gonna eat you up, and you're gonna waste money. So there's a difference, between, understanding, what the true cost of being cheap is. You have to understand what the value of your time is and where your time is best spent.
Yeah. The lawn cutting is a great example too, because I don't cut my own lawn, and the reason being is like I have a lawn tractor in my shed, and when I moved into my house, I was like, well, I'll give it a whirl. Like it was the end of the year, I'm not going to hire a landscaper for like 2 mows, so I go out and mow the lawn, and it takes me 5 hours. I have a decent lot, and it's a little crappy little lawn tractor like you buy at Sears or whatever, and so it took me 5 hours. And I hadn't weed eated, I hadn't blown the grass off the thing, I hadn't done the beds or anything. And I was like, man, I'm not doing that again. But then I have the professionals come do it, and it's like 45 minutes. And when you have the right tools and you have the experience and you're just good at what you do, I want to point that out, because as entrepreneurs, it's good that we're optimistic. But sometimes we're optimistic about how well we can do something that we're not good at. We're like, oh, well, it's we'll say it's $100 an hour for the professional to do it, which seems like a ton of money. And you're like, well, I can do it better. I'm not paying somebody $100 an hour. And then it takes you 10 hours. And like you said, you're $30 an hour. You just blew $300 or $200 that you didn't have to. That's a great example, because when we get into things that we're not good at, unless it's like a hobby that we're trying to learn on the side, then you shouldn't do it. And you shouldn't hobby on your car, so you end up in a ditch, and you shouldn't hobby on, things that go to the IRS, because I tried it and it doesn't really work very well. So as Tim could tell you, I came with a decent sized mess that literally this year is finally cleaned up from before I met Tim, from 10 or 11 years ago. And it's like, that stuff follows you around for a little while.
The inefficiency is the problem. I mean, when it comes to the government, people don't understand. They say, even if you think in your mind, oh, if I make a mistake, it'll be easy to fix. Nothing happens quickly. There's no incentive for them to get something resolved fast.
Right.
So their incentive is to just let it go and let it go and let it go. Which does nothing but cost you money. So do it right the first time, and don't lose money on giving up that opportunity cost.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent advice. When it comes to, we've talked about the profit first booked and like pricing correctly. And from day one, you gave me really good margins that we actually finally now hit, because over time I've been able to shift and adjust and take your advice. But when it comes to like pricing and like more forward thinking parts of the business, what kind of things do you encourage people to start looking at? Or, I mean, obviously you sit down one-on-one and coach people through that, but what kind of things come up a lot that you're like, oh, if everybody just knew this, then they would be in better shape?
It is astounding to me how little business owners pay attention or have any idea what a financial statement looks like, means, does. There's two parts to a financial statement. There's the profit and loss, which just about every business owner thinks that's where all the gravy's at. Okay, they look at the profit and loss, and they look at the top, and they look at the bottom, and they take their percentages, and they think everything's cool. Well, guess what? If you don't do the other financial statement correctly, and your balance sheet is a hot mess, that profit and loss doesn't mean anything. So one of the things that we've been able to do over the years is we've utilized technology to allow people to have good information on a regular basis. There's so many good financial products like Xero, like FreshBooks, like QuickBooks Online has come leaps and bounds, amazing, to making sure that we can keep a dynamic thumb on your financial situation. So at any given point in time, you and I can open up your financial statement system and make sure that your numbers are correct, because that's the biggest thing. Is you get into these benchmarks, you get into margins, and I could spit off all the margins I want as to what you're supposed to hit, but if you're trying to achieve those goals based off of bad information, you're just spinning in circles.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been able to do real well is utilize all these platforms so that information is correct 100% of the time. So obviously that's step one, making sure that the information is right, that you're making decisions on, and timely, because you got to be able to look and say, all right, I made this change, I did this differently, and then see what the results are. Historically what has happened is, people make a change after they see their year end. All right, so they haven't finished their year end. They don't know the numbers are until March or April or whatever, and they say, "Oh man, we didn't make enough money." So now we change, right? We change whatever it is that we thought we needed to change. We manage labor better, we manage costs better, whatever, and then we find out that there were other ancillary effects of that change. A restaurant's a good example. Is that in the restaurant business, your labor cost needs to be under 30% if you can. And sometimes people then focus on just that one number and then realize, well, I cut all my staff and there's never anybody here, so I can't service the people correctly. Yeah. So then it takes them that much longer to actually feel what the financial ramifications are. So here we are a year later, they're looking at those financial statements next March for last year. You're already 3-4 months behind the 8 ball and you're losing money. We've only got so much time, right? Once we get good enough at our whatever job it is, whatever service that we provide, you've only got so much time to do it correctly. So wasting that amount of time on bad or untimely information in regards to your financial information takes years, I'd venture to say decades, off the growth of your business, because you could have paid that person to cut your grass. You could have paid that company to make sure that your financial statements are clean every month, every quarter, every whatever, so that you're seeing real time live what happens when you make these changes. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you're learning, you're evolving much faster now. We've got all this great technology to tie in all this stuff. You should be able to evolve every week, every month. You need to, as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to change as the challenges roll in and as the things change. So if you don't have the information to change, then you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're so right. Cause like everybody, when they talk about taxes, they're like scared of April 15th and that's way too far gone. Like at that point, you have no ability to pivot or recover or adjust pricing or adjust your business model. And what I love about what we do together and what everybody should do, and like I said, obviously, reach out to Tim, but with somebody, if you're not going to do it with him, make sure that your books are right on a monthly basis, because that allows us internally on our team, the way we're set up, I get a daily report of all my numbers. I know exactly where I stand on a daily basis so that I can see a shift happening long before my competitors can, honestly, because I guarantee you, if I called 100 of my competitors maybe one or two could tell me their daily numbers. Maybe. That would probably be a long shot. I mean, you would know better than me. But like, if you have the information right, and then you have the right people doing the jobs, and you're not like waiting till whenever you get to it to reconcile your books, or waiting till whenever to, figure that stuff out, then you can actually focus on what you're good at, like you said. And what I love is, like, as needed, a few times a year, we sit down, you say, hey, here's where your tax liability stands. Make this little tweak, and you won't owe any money end of the year, because it'll come out incrementally instead of that huge tax bill at the end of the year. Or, hey, what's going on with this area? What should we do with this, and pay attention to it. And that's what's been really cool, is because you guys just custom mold around what the business needs. So if it's really just tax planning and everything is handled, great. Then that's good. If it's being that CFO that steps in, you guys offer that. It'll just, and none of this stuff costs money. Meaning that if you use it, you'll make so much money, it won't cost you anything. Like, that's been my experience with it. And even down to the bookkeeping, and you guys have payroll, and you don't force somebody to use it all. It's all customized to, like, what does that business really need? And I really want everybody listening to this and watching this to understand that when you find a partner like that can be flexible and solve your pain point, then it frees you up, emotionally, mentally, and with your time to actually grow the business. And I mean, I wish I would have known it earlier, but at least I do now. And the impact has been significant. I mean, we've had significant double-digit growth for years too now, because I don't worry about this stuff. I just call Tim. And so it's really, really key to realize that sometimes when we try to tough it out or do it all or think we can handle it, we're really digging a deep hole for ourselves.
And everybody knows what they know, and you have to spend your time doing what you're best at. Yeah. Don't waste it trying something that you have no idea and you're in over your head about.
Yeah. And the other difference I'll just add in, and this is key for any vendor you bring into a business, in my opinion, is don't bring in a vendor that's so siloed in their specialty that they can't speak to what you do, or they don't understand where you're at. That's another huge advantage, and that's why I'm a client for life, is because Tim is an entrepreneur. Like, they're an entrepreneurial organization. They get what it's like to be a small business. From the smallest business to huge enterprises, they understand entrepreneurship. So they don't just rattle off tax law or CPA jargon or stuff that won't help you or probably even hurt you because you wouldn't understand it. You're just talking to another entrepreneur, and you're talking to somebody that understands that. And that is the biggest difference to me. It's like, I know that you get it, and you're not just like crunching numbers and nerding out on stuff that isn't relevant to me, So
don't get me wrong. We have plenty of times where we're in here having a blast with spreadsheets and having calculator competitions and all that cool stuff. I mean, if you only knew all the crazy things that were happening behind the scenes here at our office.
Yeah. But like when you bring it out and help us, it's on point, and it's really made an impact. So, well, I really appreciate you hanging out today with us, Tim, and talking through this stuff. I'm going to drop a couple links in for you guys that are watching live, and we'll put these in the show notes too. You can look at White Glove Payroll for the payroll end of things. That's, again, another thing. If you're doing that yourself, you're losing money and creating significant liability for your company too, because I also tried that in years past. And also the main site, hddaviscpas.pro. So whiteglovepayroll.com and hddaviscpas.pro is where you can find Tim. And thanks for coming on the show today, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.